Big difference in reasoning here.
Got too excited.
They barely reasoned at all.
Hello and welcome back to the feature crew. So today we're retrying O1 version models. So this is the first time I'm back with everyone to try this out, and we've heard a lot about o1-mini potentially being even better than o1-preview. So we want to take it for a spin today. We're going to be looking at a few kind of interesting ideas. The first one being the Tower of London, where we want to test its future reasoning capability. We're going to be testing it with some competitive analysis and seeing how it does. I'm just going to bring an image up. It is this game. So where you have the little pigs, and typically this is a game where you're not only thinking about physics, but also thinking about future state. So previous LLMs might struggle with this because, for example, if you want to move the red pig, you might have to make a slightly suboptimal approach initially. So we're going to see how the LLM does. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting these two models ready. So on the left, we've got o1-mini, the right o1-preview, and we're going to see how they stack up to each other. You can only move one ball at a time. You can only move the top ball, so it's a physics-based puzzle. You can't just grab and take all the balls. And for this test, we're using the emojis to help kind of prompt and make it easy to see. And you can see this is where we're trying to get to, the goal state down the bottom, and this is the current state. So obviously it's going to need to move the green over, replace it with the red, and so on.
Send it.
Send it. So o1-mini and o1-preview.
And they're off to the races.
They're off to the races.
And so mini failed here, right? You can't actually move red because blue's on top.
Wait, no. That's the goal state.
Yeah. Okay. So red is actually on peg 1. Yeah, so it can move peg 1 to 3. That is a totally valid move.
Okay. Got it.
Cool. So now we can see, we've set up the prompts for the next round, and this is also a point where we can compare where they've gotten, o1-mini decided to move the red token, and o1-preview decided to move the blue token. Both of them still seem to be kind of progressing towards the goal, so I think it'll be interesting to see how they go from here.
Absolutely. Kick them both off. At least it's still getting valid moves. Previous LLMs, like we had tested this before, and I mean, Jacob can speak to it, but I think sometimes, way older models would just not even understand how the emojis are set up. So at least it's reasoning correctly over the rules.
Big difference in reasoning here. Wow.
All right, it looks like o1-preview's come back as well. Thoughtful 58 seconds compared to o1-mini's 7 seconds. So nearly taking an entire minute to think about its next step. So
what was the move?
It moved green from 1 to 3.
It moved green from 1 to 3?
Yep.
That looks like an invalid move. So already we have an invalid move from o1-preview.
You're right. o1-preview got it wrong.
Because green is on...
Yeah. I think it's thinking that the goal state is the current state.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's gotten confused, and it's like, hey, I can just move this over here, when really it should move. It could move green from 2 to 3, right? It could do that, and then it could put the red. So I can see why it's kind of thinking about that as the goal state, right? Because that is technically correct. Then you can put the red in the 2, and you're starting to get more progress. But yeah, saying from 1 to 3 is not correct.
Okay. So do you want to give it an incorrect move? You can't do that.
Let's try that. So that was incorrect. We'll also go ahead and run the left side, the o1-mini. Let's see if it can get through the rest of the puzzle. Okay, they both come back. Looking at o1-preview, it says, you're right, I apologize for the mistake. I misinterpreted the arrangement of the balls and pigs. Move red from 1 to 2. That is technically a valid action. However, it seems not optimal. Thinking ahead, I think it should instead be moving. The fact that it tried to move green was correct, so that it could move everything else around. It's now saying move this and move this. These moves will align peg 2 with the goal state, completing the puzzle in the minimum number of moves.
So it jumped to the end.
It just jumped to the end. It got too excited. But let's see if this does actually complete it.
No, it doesn't, because blue's not on 2. 2 to 2.
Yeah.
From 2 to 2's top, it's breaking rules.
Yeah.
So, I think this shows with even this high level reasoning, a pretty simple set of rules, a game that's literally designed, a test that's designed for children. These models still can't quite keep to it.
Yeah. I mean, we will continue testing with other variants, but again, for reference, I'm going to pull up the picture again. This is literally what children do. This is the game, and a PhD level, well, maybe they don't claim it to be PhD, but this intense reasoning is not able to do the kids' game. So
Certainly
I feel
AI
like,
Twitter claims it's PhD worthy.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like this is one of the fundamental things we're missing here, is that even though we're getting this reasoning, it might be absolutely fantastic in like Olympiad questions. There seems to be this kind of almost lobotomized when it comes to actually just general intelligence.
And something I want to give it a little bit of credit, or give them both a little bit of credit here, because past models aren't really able. I've tried many different ways of prompting this test because it's the most accepted academically sort of executive reasoning test for kids, which is a great way to test developing LLMs. And I've tried many different ways to prompt this. This emoji style has proven to be the best in my experience. And past models, even up to like the 4.0s and the Claude 3.5 sonnets, haven't really been able to understand the problem and keep to the structure. And so the fact that they both started off pretty strong is like already shows that they're better at reasoning through and understanding the problem than past models. It's just not this big step change thing that we were hoping for. And maybe it is in specific domains or in specific contexts where there's more training data. And so I think that's what we're going to test now.
Absolutely. All right. Next up, we're going to be testing effectively business planning, business reasoning. So what we're going to do here is a bit of a hack. We're going to use GPT-4o in a bit of a manual routing style to generate a business idea and some key documents. And we're going to let the O models reason over, is this a good idea? Does that business idea have legs? So I'm going to quickly tee that up now. Awesome. So we're just going to generate one set of grounding data. I've just made a separate conversation for both. But we're going to be generating a business for Joe's GPU farm. So we're going to want a set of documents to capture the goals and status and some more detail on certain areas.
So we can see it working through generating a strategic plan, monthly operations report, and all this will serve as awesome grounding data for testing the O1 reasoning models to see how well can they take in a bunch of real life style information and then reason over it and produce some sort of useful output.
What we're trying to test here as well is real scenarios in which we might use better reasoning models in the future. So we've seen lots of prompts on, say, Twitter and stuff where it's lots of these gotcha tests or questions out of a math Olympiad, whereas most work we do is not answering exam questions. So the prompt we're going to give the O models is based on the above business data, analyze risks, opportunities, and paths forward for the company. Present your analysis in a detailed report with important information or key points in bold. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the entire business data we got generated, and we'll see how they do.
Cool. So we've seen o1-mini's already responding. It barely reasoned at all.
Let's see. It looks like it's really just taken what it got given and probably reshuffled it. It gave an executive summary, which is cute.
Give it time.
Risk analysis. Looks at regulatory changes, data center overload, operating at 95% GPU utilization. It wants to get 50,000 GPUs by 2027.
Ambitious.
It's ambitious. Transition to 80% renewable energy.
It's pulling up specific numbers.
Solar panel installation. That's interesting. Solar panel, not a common power used for GPUs.
Successfully launched Joe's AI lab and GPU burst mode.
I love GPU burst mode. I think to your point, it told on itself here, right? Because if you compare the output of this to the Tower of London game, you're getting way less of these steps that it went through to think about it, way less of these steps that it went through to assess it. It's showing one, right? Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, it literally just said gathering insights, starting with strategic plans and progress reports, identify risk and roles, has helped in understanding growth potential and recommending future actions.
So now if we look at o1-preview, how big of a reasoning leap are we making? Are there a lot more steps?
I mean,
you would hope
it looked
so, right?
almost exactly the same. So it did think for 21 seconds.
We got more steps.
Analyzing risks and opportunities, assessing operational risks. I'm looking at the high GPU, and this maps out with data we gave it. Spotting new competitors. I'm curious about innovative pricing and tech strategies. So this started with executive summary. Talks about key player by 2027. The report.
They're very similar.
Says almost the same thing here. This report analyzes risk, opportunities, and strategic paths forward. First, they both start with risk analysis.
They
Worth
have
saying that
conflicting numbers.
it brought the instruction forward to the executive summary for o1-preview. It said, hey, we're going to bold the things that are important. And it did not for Mini.
And Jacob's so right. Like it's given slightly different numbers, 95% versus 98%. It's trying to get the same intent though, right? Like, like this is an operational risk. This is a data center overload. So different phrasing, but roughly looking at the same things. It's got financial risks. That's talking about the regulatory changes. This is regulatory changes. This is actually given mitigations already, and this is just saying this is just risk analysis.
So o1-mini is a little bit more forward with like actually suggesting something novel.
In each of these sections, though, o1-preview has done a better job of identifying risks. It's found more novel risks. It's found things that aren't immediately in the data we gave it.
I'm not going to lie. The A in bullet point feels less bad. They talk about GPU burst mode, sustainability initiatives. I believe that comes up.
So this is a place where logic breaks down, right? Because you don't often see anybody in the real world talking about using solar energy for data centers because of the need for persistent energy. Right? So it's commonly not the main way you're powering. So to Dylan's kind of earlier point, you're not seeing it sort of demonstrate at least a really real-world thinking through this in the same way that, say, an analyst would at some company. It's not making these projections for how things could fail.
Exactly.
But I think that was in the original document as well, though, right? Like that,
That's true.
So it is kind of just parroting what was in
Right.
the fake generated training data. Let's quickly compare paths forward.
It was basically addressing operational risks. This is basically operational risk, strengthen AI collaboration.
Interesting. o1-preview is way more generic, high level. Optimize operational efficiency, and then it's in the description below. It gets a little more in detail, but I'm looking at o1-mini on the left, and I'm
like
seeing
action plan.
action
At
plan.
least trying to be like, hey, like this is what we should do. Whereas this is kind of just regurgitating a lot of the stuff. Stick to the roadmap for launching, ensuring they need market needs. So they're all pulling out basically the same thing, but it's missing this kind of action plan. I would have anticipated with something that was more intelligent, again, intelligence being a human thing, for it to say, there's no way this thing is getting anywhere close to getting 50,000 GPUs in 2027. Like, that's just not feasible, right? Like, even if you had an intern at, like, Big Four, that's what they're going to say. They're like, what do you mean? Like, this is, like, an insane, like, oh, I don't have enough information. I need information on XYZ. And again, this could change when it gets, like, web enabled or other plugins.
Right, that's really worth calling out. Is this thing cannot search the web right now, right?
Yeah. So that could just have it completely handicapped, in terms of being able to fully understand the world.
To your point, you'd still expect it in its training data to have some historical knowledge of the GPU market and to throw a flag here and say.
Well, I would have been so impressed if when it said thought, it's like I'm looking through the data and it said something like, this data doesn't really make sense to me. I didn't actually like what I was given. I don't, it goes the negative path, the kind of negative bias of hey, I'm needing more information, or I'm needing something to be clarified, or this doesn't make sense to me. That would have been incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. So now as a follow-up, let's try to push them to be a little more innovative. So we've set up a little scenario where a new CEO is joining, and we want the models to recommend some pretty high-level, CEO assistant kind of recommendations. What should they focus on first? What are the next big steps they can make to add new value to the company? Let's see what the models say.
Interesting. Again, o1-mini, only thinking for a couple of seconds. It's really focused on making a report again. Again, I would have thought we gave it a very clear instruction. What are the most important things for them to focus on? What are the next best steps to add value? And instead, it's made this entire report. So we did see as well on the chat, the o1-preview, it thought for 20 seconds, but it did the same thing where it still made a big report. I did notice at the very bottom, it does have an action plan. It says immediate action plan, first 30 days, first 60 days. So,
and the action plan is very generic.
Yeah.
Right.
What does this even mean? Right? Even in the previous report it had, it was actually hey, this is the figures and this is the stat. It could say in the first 30 days, GPU burst mode, right? Even then I would have been impressed. At least it picked up on, hey, you got to go do this.
Okay, so cool. We've been prompting it from sort of the internal company point of view. We've been noticing and critiquing its lack of ability to assess the reality of the business, right? Whether this business would succeed, whether it's even possible, whether its decisions make sense. So one thing we're trying now is if we give it a new role and we say, okay, you're a portfolio manager, you're not at the company, tell me, would you invest or not? Give me a very short description of this. We saw with the executive summary that it kept this report formatting, so we're curious if it will adapt its formatting and also make a more grounded assessment of this business. Really fast on Mini again. Really fast. Decides to invest.
Talking about strong growth, increasing revenues. Now, again, of course, because this data was AI generated, like, of course, it showed like a rosy, green lineup picture. It's a little unfortunate that there isn't. Maybe we could ask it to go into a little more detail, but it doesn't really cite any specific reasons for investing other than high level. The numbers are green.
Again, this has been what I would consider real reasoning intelligence, and it still seems like these models are falling short.
Yeah.
Whether it would be any different to an advancement in say 4.0, I'm not entirely sold, because right now it's the reasoning around this area seems to be non-existent. It's really just kind of mumbling or like reshuffling existing information. It's very just green. It's not really, as we've talked about, critically thinking in that regard.
I heard someone say, and this is a bit of a hyperbole viral moment on Twitter, but someone said you should think about this more as GPT-3 but a different architecture. So that's the level of intelligence you're looking at, but it's this reasoning, which isn't totally fair, but it does describe that we expect these models to get better. To Dylan's point, we expect when it has the ability to query the web, that'll get better. But yeah, these are great tests because this is what ultimately you'd be paying for in a business, right? If you're going to pay, what were the rumors, $2,000 a seat for GPT-5, something like that, or whatever they're going to call the next model. If that's the case, then you would expect it to be able to answer these things in a way that's as good or preferably better than a Big Four consulting firm. And that is, we're not there yet.
No.
It might be interesting to call out that, like, we can do a whole nother video comparing o1 and 4.0. But I think maybe an issue that's happening here might be some of the prompting, right? Like, we don't know how to prompt o1 yet. It's a new class of model, like Chris just said. And so, maybe there are strategies to get the reasoning models to give you better outputs that we just don't know yet. Like a chain of thought, think through it step-by-step equivalent for reasoning models, since they're already doing that because of their training and because of their architecture. And so, like, I am interested to see how that develops, but I agree that for now, like, not only is this not a jump, a huge jump from 4.0 in everyday tasks, and that's something that we noticed in our last video, but in this video I'm starting to notice that I'm not sure if I'm ready to declare that o1-mini is better, but I'm not noticing some huge difference between o1-mini and o1-preview. Like, it's a marginal difference at best.
Yep.
Yes.